first thing we have to do is look at the minutes for April 4th and consider what's going on with those.
Motion minutes be accepted as written.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The agenda is listed in do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move that we accept the agenda.
Support.
Approve it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. New business is case number J18-0024, public hearing for a variance request to allow an antique shop at 1620 Court Street in a RO-1, which is a restrict office district. That's the request. Background information on this is it's also known as 1616 Court and has been used as offices and residential use as is allowed in a RO-1 district. A request came in to allow a retail antique store to locate at this address. The request is to hold a public hearing to allow a variance for the antiques shop in a RO-1 district at 1620 Court. Comments, the parcels to the northeast behind the property are zoned R2, two-family residential, and all the other surrounding properties are RO-1. RO-1 allows up to 4 apartments and professional office space. It does not allow for retail businesses. To the northwest, across Charles Street, is a credit union that probably has much more traffic than an antique store would, or does. It is currently zoned RO-1, and financial institutions are allowed in the district with special approval. If the variance is granted, a site plan will need to be presented because of the change of use, and a fence will have to separate the property from the neighboring residential properties. Postcards were mailed to all the properties within 300 feet of this site. I have not had any feedback, but the postcards were only mailed 2 days before writing this. There may be more calls next week.
And I did receive one call that she didn't have any problem with the antique shop, and then the letter that's in front of you that came in the mail.
Okay. Should I read the letter?
You don't need to.
Don't need to, okay. I didn't know whether...
The letter pretty much says that she doesn't have any problem with it. And
Right,
actually
right.
thinks that it would be.
It was a very encouraging letter, actually.
Scott?
Okay.
This is for staff, though.
Yeah.
Can you explain the difference, that this isn't the final stop? That this would have to go to city planning after this?
Right. If this variance is approved, because it's a change of use, it will have to go to the planning commission. At that point, they'd ask more about the hours of operation, and at that point, I would figure out the square footage used and know how many parking spaces are required. And we'd ask a lot of other questions
That
at
would
that.
also get into perimeter fencing more.
Historic
Right, yeah,
district.
the fencing would be discussed more.
Historic district.
This isn't a historic district, is it?
No, it is not.
It's around by you there, though.
It's over there, but it's across
Yeah.
the street.
And then I'm sorry, had a question about if the parking would exceed the spaces that would be on the property, who would take care of the street parking then? What department goes by that?
The streets department would take a look at that, but my guess is, I think I had figured that there's enough parking space out behind the building for 8 cars.
8?
8, and still meet all of the requirements. And it's very doubtful, I mean, I haven't looked that up yet because I didn't know the exact square footage, but it's doubtful that it would require any more than that.
Very doubtful. Yeah, I go to antique stores all over the place. Haven't seen eight cars.
That's why you should.
Okay, Scott Jordan, do you want to speak on this first?
My name's Scott Jordan. I'm the owner at 1620 Court Street. I've been living in the building since 2006, and I've owned it since 2011. I've spent a ton of time and energy, money, on improving the property. When I bought it, it was basically a big white box with no landscaping, nothing. And now there's flower beds and trees surrounding the building. I tell you this because it speaks to my desire to improve my neighborhood and the character. I believe, this is Jennifer, she is the proposed new owner, possibly, who owns the antique store. I believe that her shop would improve and fit right in with the character of not only the building, but the neighborhood in general. She's already in the neighborhood, 4 blocks away, right by the Court Street Theater. It's also my understanding that R01 is meant to be a buffer zone between business and residential. I'm at the 1600 block of Court Street, which is R01, as well as the 1500 block and the 1700 block. But the 14, 13, and 1200 blocks and the 18, 19, and 2000 block are all business one. So you're not really buffering anything. That being said, as it was already mentioned, antique stores don't have a ton of traffic, so I feel it's in the spirit of the zoning to allow it, just because it's not a high traffic business. So that's about all I have to say, I think. Unless you have any questions for me.
That was it.
right.
Are there any questions for Scott?
Will you continue to live there?
I myself am moving out of state. I can let Jennifer speak to the rest of that, but she does have plans to reside there at some point, I believe, so.
Any other questions for Scott? No further questions? Is there anyone else that would like to speak? And go ahead and go up, tell your name and your present address.
Absolutely. I'm Jennifer McKendry. I reside at 132 South Alexander Street, and I am the owner of Court Street Antiques. For those of you who have not been in, and I see a familiar face up there, my business is right next door to the Court Street Theater at 1212 and 1214 Court Street. We've been there for 5.5 years. Currently, we rent the location, and ideally, I would like to continue to put forth an effort to help revitalize the city and actually purchase a building and keep the antique store as a long-term investment, not only for myself, but for the community. From the business aspect, I mean, I absolutely love antiques. I love the building. I love the area. But like I said, I want this to be an investment and a long-term goal. Renting is fine, but I would love to own. And unfortunately, at the current location, if it did sell one day, I would not be able to afford it simply because it's 3 businesses wide and several apartments upstairs, and that's just not within my reach. However, the location at Scott's is something. It's enough floor space for me to have my antique store, almost as it currently is. The upstairs, eventually, when my son moves out, he's 14, would be our residence upstairs. It's large enough. It's 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen. So, you know, that's it. That is the dream, to actually own something in Saginaw. If something should happen to my dad, my mom could move upstairs. But like I said, really, it's an ideal house to have an antique shop in. It's historic, it's gorgeous, and there's a lot that I can do on that location. the block that I live on now, it's beautiful, and I want to expand that out a few blocks onto Court Street. There's a lot that we can, I think, bring to the area. It's got a lot of potential, and I think as an antique store, again, there's a lot of potential there. And it would provide the long-term stabilization, I think, of that corner and possibly of that Court Street corridor.
Any questions for Jennifer?
I do have some traffic information. For the week, I figured out that we average 5 people a day. For example, Monday, we had 0 customers in except for the mailman. Yesterday, we had 3 customers in, and today was another 0 day. Thank goodness I have a day job that supports us, because antiques don't. But it's something that I love, and I am not going to give up on because it gets me through my nightmare of a day job. It is the weekends, though, that we tend to have more traffic on, and you know, if you've driven by that little corridor, you know that there's not a lot of parking out front, but it suffices for us. I'm lucky if there's 3 cars at a time into the shop, and that's what I consider to be busy. 4, I'm absolutely ecstatic. But we do share parking with the other businesses along the street, so I'm not worried about parking at all behind the building. 8 spots, that's, you know, that's a lot of parking for us, so.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much.
I have a question I forgot to ask. How many day operation are you gonna have?
We are 6 days a week. We are open Monday through Saturday.
Gotcha.
Monday through Friday is 11, well, it's technically 10 to 5. Friday and Saturday, it's 11 to 5.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else present that would, go ahead and step up, name and address?
My name's Tom Sanderson. I live in 123 North Charles, across the street from Scott's establishment. And I think it'd be a great idea to have another business there already. I mean, it's for sale, have a potential buyer, and it's better to have a non-vacant building than a vacant building. And I think it'll work out great for their neighborhood. I mean, the credit union already has a lot of traffic there. I can't imagine the antique store having as much traffic as the credit union does already. So I'm in favor of the variance.
Is there any questions for the gentleman? Thank you. Thank you very much. I see somebody coming forward. Name and address.
My name is Heather Wardeen. I live at 213 South Charles, so I'm 1 block the other way. I'm not in the 300 feet, but I am a concerned citizen like many of my neighbors, just for the point that this building could easily, like several other buildings around our neighborhood, get turned into apartments. We take very big pride in our neighborhood. We're right there on Adams. We'd rather see a well-maintained lot with good landscaping and a house that's going to be maintained, especially on Court Street, where all the businesses go down to Michigan and Hamilton Street. I'd rather see that than it turn into apartments. When is the lawn going to be mowed? Is there going to be trash out front? I'm more concerned about the perception of Court Street and Charles and Adams versus just another apartment. So I'm extremely in favor of this.
Okay. Any questions for the lady? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any, go ahead.
My name's John McMahon. I live at 133 North Charles, and I would love to see a business, especially like an antique business, go into there. I think it would be, make the neighborhood much, much nicer. The whole Court Street corridor much nicer. And like, again, the apartments, I don't want to see that happen. Too many buildings are being turned around, and if a nice business is going to go in there, and I don't think she's going to have a problem with parking. And I mean, I'd really like to see it there. Besides, I like to go on antique shops too.
Any questions for the gentleman? Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak on the subject?
My name is Jennifer DeWitt, and I live at 125 North Bates. So I'm a ways away, but I'm here to support this because I have businesses across the street and at the corner from me. So I feel that your buffer zone is not going to be a situation here. Court Street has a lot of traffic and a lot of noise as it is. I don't think that the credit union is quiet, so I don't think that if anybody has an argument about that, that's foolish because Jen's place is really quiet. I do go to her business, just to be honest with you, but I do live close by, and I think that this would be a good thing for the quarter. I think it would be beautiful for her to put her touch a little bit further down, maybe stretch that. I do go to Fowler's drugstore that's right there, which has been there for a very long time. And I think that we need that. We need that to pull down a little bit. So I am in support and in favor of it. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents too.
Thank you. Any questions for Jennifer? Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the subject? Second call for anyone else that would like to speak on the subject. Third and final call for anyone else that would like to speak on the subject. Okay, an affirmative vote, we will discuss the appeal, vote, and continue to the next appeal. Or, there's only one today. An affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board, 4 votes, shall be necessary to decide in favor of the appeal. The action of the board is final and only relief is through the court. Are there any questions concerning that? Do I have any motions on the presentation before us?
I move that we approve case J180024.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have
Oh, discussion, that's right.
Discussion first.
Thank you. You having discussion? No.
Go ahead.
My first concern is the traffic volume on Court Street. I don't care, from 8 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning till 5:30 in the afternoon. It's a high volume of traffic there. And I was wondering if we could table this to get a report on the traffic volume on Court Street for that area, because it's congested already. And a lot of the businesses there and churches have been there for over 25 years. So they have a lot of activities that go forth from these businesses and churches or whatever. It's a busy neighborhood. It's a busy area. I'd like to table this and get a count from the traffic engineering, traffic volumes from that, say 7 to 6 in the evening, because it's congested enough. If you put things in the front of the store, a lot of times in the summertime, vendors tend to open their shop a little wider and put it, display in on the grounds, etc. I think we need to consult with traffic engineering first, asking that it be tabled.
Thank you, Edna. Is there anybody else that wants to make any discussion? Then I'll revert to, do I have any motions on the issue before us?
I'll make a motion that this is tabled till we get a report from traffic engineering.
We have a motion to be tabled. Is there a second? There is not a second.
It's tabled. I need clarification. Robert's rules of order.
No, you made a motion to
Yeah.
table it. There's been no support.
There's been no
to that.
support.
Okay.
motion. Just so you know, I'll give you a little information on that. Right now, the traffic engineer position is open. It would probably be a minimum of 6 months before this came back to us.
Could they send it out to a consulting firm?
I don't know if they would do that. That'd be up to the engineering department. Even when, if you remember a while back, we did some traffic studies on Fayette and in that area before that street was vacated. The process then took a couple of months, and after that point, engineering increased the time frame for a traffic study from a minimum of 4 months they want to be able to perform the study. So we're looking at least 4 to 6 months before this would come back. This issue did come up from another board member who had emailed me, and some of the things that could be considered, and it's something that if you wanted to be presented to the engineering department, they could look at, is because Court Street has 4 or 5 different zoning districts.
Right.
There's R1, there's R2, there's RMU, there's B1, there's RO1. Some of the things that could be looked at is maybe in some areas parking would not be allowed on the street. Other things, and this is a big one, is the speed limit could be lowered, because traveling Court Street myself, nobody does the speed limit. Everybody's way over. It is a problem, maybe some enforcement. Those are things that could be looked at. They're outside of what the zoning board can look at. They're not under your jurisdiction, but recommendations could be made to engineering to take a look at those things.
Now, can I have a motion on,
You've already got a motion to
Motion's
approve.
on the floor already.
oh, okay, we go back to that, and it was seconded by George. All in favor?
What?
Approval. It was,
State the motion, please.
the motion for case number J18-0024 has been, the motion is to approve. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries.
Now, could we make a recommendation to traffic engineering?
Sure. So your motion is approved and everything's okay. Sure, if you guys want to make a recommendation or,
I would make a recommendation that we have some information by the time it comes before city planning commission, which would be the next step.
Thank you.
Do we have any old business to discuss?
I'd like to know on the new business if any part of the city ordinance has been changed as far as being in aligning with the state zoning ordinance is what we use. We use the state specifications in law.
no, well, you use, the state has the zoning,
Right.
but most of our ordinance, yes, we have looked at that. Most of our information does comply with the state. In fact, I don't know of anything that doesn't.
I was just wondering if you maybe have updated something within the last 6 months that we're not aware
No,
of.
anything that would have been updated would have had to have gone to the planning commission. The only thing that affected the ordinance is the riverfront mixed use is now a form-based zoning code. So that's the only thing in the last year that I can think of where there's been any changes.
This is still on this topic a little bit. it's just kind of strange with the historic district where it's kind of gerrymanders around that place, around, because the State Theater is not even in the,
In that district.
it's all across the street.
I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
most of the historic district goes up to Court, but it doesn't go north of Court
Right.
Street.
Yeah.
is there any public comment? Oh, I guess there is. Go ahead, name and,
John McMahon, 133 North Charles. I don't think traffic, because I go up and down Court Street all day long because I drive delivery, and I don't think the store opening up is going to make a very big impact on the amount of traffic in and around the area. I mean, I drove Court for a long time, and that part does not make any sense to me.
thank you very
because
much
it's not
for your
gonna-
input.
I like your comments, but when you get the next notice for city planning, be there to specify that. And I think with public comment, it's not supposed to relate to the topic, correct?
Right.
Oh, that's true. It should be on any other
But
topic.
not this
Okay,
one.
well,
But just so you know, you will not receive a notice on the planning
You won't?
commission. No, because it's, now that the variance is granted, it'll only be to look at the
Oh, okay.
issues that the planning
So I
commission.
So that'll go
Well,
to Jennifer?
I would suggest you call Mike and tell him that, so he can bring it to us in a note.
okay, I
Okay.
just wanted to voice my opinion.
Yeah, if you, well, and I can take it from the minutes here and,
Okay.
and make sure that it gets presented to the planning commission.
Do I have any motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.